Hello there, everyone. If you're watching this video, then you are part of the TTOR army, an army that is building itself up one subscriber at a time. As you can see from the title and the thumbnail of today's video today, we're going to be talking about Ukraine, and more specifically, their president, Zelenskyy, and how he is the most Hitler-esque of every dictator that has come since Adolf Hitler was on the earth running the Nazi regime. Now, if you're looking at things going on the internet and in the media, basically the establishment is telling you Vladimir Putin in Russia bad, but Zelenskyy and the Ukrainian government good, and Zelenskyy and the Ukrainian government are fighting for democracy, and basically you need to support Zelenskyy, because if you don't support Zelenskyy, you're not supporting Ukraine. And so you see this trend from all the sheeple on the internet talking about how I stand with Ukraine, I totally stand with Ukraine, how dare Russia attack Ukraine, what did they ever do to Russia? Russia bad because CNN told me so, therefore it must be true. But I think if these people realized just how evil and bad Zelenskyy was, I think they'd start to figure out that, you know what? Maybe we were lied to about who Ukraine was. Maybe we shouldn't have jumped on the bandwagon of blindly supporting Ukraine and their government. Now, the article in particular that details why you shouldn't support Zelenskyy and the Ukrainian government is this article from PJ Media. The article, as you can see here on the screen, is titled, "Beware of Those Indiscriminately Cheering for Volodymyr Zelenskyy." The article came out 3 days ago, and it's quite interesting. Article says, if you're anything like me, and I'll bet you are, over the past month you've been feeling uneasy watching the zealots on the left and the squishes on the right unabashedly cheering for Volodymyr Zelenskyy in the events of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. After the political animosity of the last several years, something has seemed off, not quite right, about pundits on the left and the right fervently cheering for the same side in anything, let alone a war. To be clear, I'm not questioning American support of the Ukrainian people. What I'm uneasy with is the blind support of the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, as if he's some kind of democracy-loving, modern-day George Washington, as Fox News' Tucker Carlson called him on a recent episode of Tucker Carlson Tonight. With just a small amount of research, it's clear Zelenskyy is anything but a democratic leader. In a true democracy, people are free to express any opinion at any time in public and in private. They can also speak out against their political leaders and work to remove them from office if they disapprove of the job they're doing. The democracy in Ukraine is not at all free like that. Take, for example, the political parties in Ukraine, and one specifically called Opposition Platform for Life. With 43 seats in parliament, it is the largest opposition party in that country. Over the weekend, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, banned that party. Opposition Platform for Life is now prohibited from all activity within Ukraine. So with a single command, Zelenskyy made it impossible for anyone to run against him for president. He did this not just to Opposition Platform for Life, but to 10 other political parties that he believed were insufficiently loyal to him. They're all illegal now. Does that sound like the actions of a democratic leader? I think not. Were the pro-Russia political parties banned as well? Not likely. According to Carlson, there's also no evidence the opposition parties banned were aiding Russia in its war against Ukraine. Zelenskyy simply took advantage of the chaos of war to get rid of his opposition and turn Ukraine into a one-party state. But did Zelenskyy stop there? Not at all. So first of all, Zelenskyy literally banned every political party that wasn't his. So now Ukraine literally is a one-party state. But what did he do next? Let's find out. Having banned his political opposition, Zelenskyy then seized control of all of Ukraine's media outlets. Next, he signed a decree that combined all national television channels into a single platform that, of course, he now completely controls. He described the seizure as a unified information policy, and it certainly is unified if you consider one-sided state-approved information unification. Does that sound like the actions of a democratic leader? No. Not in the slightest. So, Zelenskyy literally took control of all of the media in Ukraine. And now, not only is there a one-party state in Ukraine as far as their government goes, now there's a state-controlled media, just like the Nazi regime, that the legacy media tells us all the time is bad and evil and no one should aspire to. And yet, mum's the word from the legacy media on all this stuff that Zelensky's doing in Ukraine. Not only that, though, when the war first broke out, Zelensky banned all men from leaving the country, which caused the conversation to write an article titled, "Why Banning Men from Leaving Ukraine Violates Their Human Rights." And as part of this banning men from leaving the country, transgender women, who aren't really women to begin with, they are being banned from leaving the country as well. They're being told to turn back and go home because they're men. And I have an InfoWars article by Paul Joseph Watson titled, "Transgenders Fleeing Ukraine Told Their Men by Border Guards." And let's watch the 2-minute 58-second video of Paul Joseph Watson talking about this.
Transgender women attempting to flee Ukraine are being turned back at the border and told to return home to fight. The reason, according to Ukrainian border guards, they're men. Sounds pretty transphobic to me. Under the state of martial law declared by President Zelenskyy, all biological males between the ages of 18 and 60 are mandated to stay in the country and fight. The law makes no exception whatsoever for trans women. A report by Italian newspaper La Corriere della Sera confirms that virtually all of the transgenders attempting to escape Ukraine by identifying as women have been apprehended and sent back. The report quotes one of the trans women who was told by border guards, quote, "They are men, they must turn back and fight." Another trans women couple, both of whom were born biological males, had their Adam's apples checked by Ukrainian officers. They were then told to return home and, quote, "go to the war." Another described the humiliating treatment meted out by Ukrainian border guards. Ukrainian border guards undress you and touch you everywhere, Judith says. You can see on their faces they're wondering, what are you? Like you're some kind of animal or something. That from someone who was born a biological female but now identifies as a man, but was still prevented from fleeing the country. Legally, there is no reason why she should not be allowed to pass with the thousands of women who are crossing Ukrainian borders to safety every day. Yet on 12th of March at about 4 a.m. after a long and humiliating search, border guards determined she was a man and prevented her passage into Poland. According to human rights campaigner Alina Shevchenko, it sounds like Ukrainian border guards are preventing even trans people with a valid certificate reflecting their new gender from leaving Ukraine, and nobody knows why. Zero Hedge reports, interestingly, the American press didn't pick up the story. Could this be because it might undermine the bright, shiny, definitely not Nazi-ish new heroic image of the Ukrainian government, which has been the subject of almost unanimously positive coverage in the American press? According to the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans and Intersex Association, whatever that is, Ukraine ranks 39 out of 49 European countries when it comes to its treatment of LGBT people. Gay marriage is illegal and homosexuality is considered a sin, and there are no anti-LGBT discrimination laws. So technically, all the moral exhibitionists who have put Ukrainian flags in their Twitter bios are supporting one of the most homophobic and transphobic countries on the entire continent. Imagine how scrambled their brains will be when they find that out. Which current thing do you support when one current thing totally contradicts the other?
Yes, I agree with Paul Joseph Watson on that one. All of the transgender people basically in America are being held up as like this new class of people who are just so oppressed, and they need all these special rights and privileges that normal people don't get. But yet when transgender people are being oppressed in Ukraine, they don't have anything to say. It's just this blind support of, oh, Ukraine is the good guys, Russia bad, I stand with Ukraine. And they're completely silent about transgenders being oppressed in Ukraine. More specifically, men identifying as women not being allowed to leave the country because they're biological men, and the border guards are telling them this and not letting them leave the country. None of these lefties who care about Ukraine or who claim to care about what's going on in Ukraine None of them are talking about this. The left isn't talking about this. Democrats aren't talking about this. The DNC isn't talking about this. Zelensky and the government he's forming in Ukraine right now is literally the most Nazi-like system we've seen since the actual Nazi regime and Hitler back in World War II. So let's return to the PJ Media article to get some more detail about why it is that the American press is refusing to talk about all the horrible things that Zelensky and the Ukrainian government are doing. This is why I felt so uneasy supporting Zelensky as a hero of democracy. Is it heroic to stand up to Russia? Yes. Is it heroic for Zelensky to become the authoritarian bully he and most of the world accuses Vladimir Putin of being? No, it's definitely not. It's called projection, by the way. So why on earth does the American left and some on the right so adamantly admire Zelensky? Do they not know he's virtually a dictator? Do they not care that he is, or is something else in play here? The latter seems most probable. While it's entirely natural to root for the Ukrainians to expel the invaders, and obviously we're rooting for them to expel Russia, it isn't natural to root for a dictator. We shouldn't lie about the Ukrainian government, and the left and the MSM are definitely lying about it. Numerous political pundits like Dick Durbin, Ben Sass, Michael McFaul, and Dave Frum have been very vocal in the MSM with their support not just for Ukraine, but Zelensky himself as the moral leader of democracy. For example, in defense of Zelensky, Sass said, "Our rights come to us from God, and government is just a shared tool to secure them." You see that spirit, that American Philadelphia 1787 spirit, in Zelensky right now. Is that true? Is Zelensky preserving democracy? Maybe, but not the true democracy you and I embrace. Senator Sass and others on the right should know better, so what exactly is the left embracing here? Tucker Carlson thinks he may know why the American left is embracing Zelensky. Maybe because Ukraine now has exactly the sort of democracy they'd like to see here in the United States. We hate to think that could be true. It's scary to think that's true, but ask yourself this. Play this word game. If they could find a national security pretext for it, a war, for example, do you think Adam Schiff and Kamala Harris or Mitch McConnell would pause for even a second before banning their political opponents from running for office in this country? Do you think they would hesitate before pulling Tucker Carlson tonight off the air forever? No, of course not. They'd do it in a flash. Then they'd call it democracy. These people love Zelensky not because he represents the Ukrainian people, but because Zelensky is exactly the leader they would like to be, one with wildly expanded war powers to make everyone who complains shut up at gunpoint. Well, that adds a little more clarity to the question now, doesn't it? The left sees Zelensky as a hero of their brand of so-called democracy. They're not cheering on democracy and freedom as much as they're cheering on the coming of authoritarian so-called democracy where they imagine they will be in charge. It does seem obvious once you realize what they're doing, and we pray they never have the power to do any of that in this country, the last free country in the world. We should not let them do that because freedom in America is not just important to us, our children and grandchildren, it's important to the globe. Again, we are the last free country. We must remain free. While we know Ukraine was invaded by its neighbors and we oppose that as we should, it doesn't mean Ukraine is a democracy. So what exactly are the squish Republicans in Washington rooting for in Ukraine? From now on, when we see the left and the squish right admiring a leader who is shutting down any opposition to him, we should pause, take note, and vote them out. And that is exactly why the legacy media is being silent about all the horrible things going on in Ukraine at the hands of Zelensky and their government. And that's why the left and the Democrats are silent about Zelensky and his government and all the horrible things they're doing. This is why the authoritarian GOP establishment politicians are not talking about it either. They want the kind of authoritarian system of government that Zelensky has just put in place in Ukraine. They want to turn America into a modern-day version of the Nazi regime. They want to turn America into their own version of what Zelensky is doing over in the Ukraine. That is why the powers that be are being silent about what Ukraine is doing right now, and they want you to believe that Russia bad and Ukraine good and don't think any deeper about it. It's because Zelenskyy is literally the most Hitler-esque dictator I've seen in my lifetime. Literally doing the same things Hitler and the Nazis did, in the most literal sense. And the American media and most American politicians are completely silent about it. They won't talk about it at all. It's because they want that system of government here in America. And all I have to say to that is, I didn't sign up for that, and I want nothing to do with it. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked what you saw and you want to help me go from being a part-time to a full-time content creator, then I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos, and leave your likes and comments down below. If you'd like to help me preserve freedom of speech on the internet, you can join Creation Social, which is my open source alt-tech alternative to Facebook and Gab. And in the future, I'll be rolling out a video sharing site of my own. So if you want to help support that and make that happen, you can also help out with that through the various payment methods that we have. You can use the payment methods to pay for Creation Social, the future video sharing site, and anything else related to TTOR. First way you can do that is become an active monthly subscriber to the TTOR Subscribe Star account. We have $1 tiers, $5 tiers, $20 tiers, $25, $50, and even $100 tiers. And if we have at least 5 active subscribers at all times, your money can actually be paid out to me so I can use it for the TTOR Creation Social projects. The other way you can donate to TTOR and Creation Social and anything related to those two things is you can go to any one of my individual Joshu TV videos, click on the Send a Tip button, and that will take you to my tip jar page where you can donate to TTOR through PayPal. You can purchase products from our Teespring store, both TTOR and Creation Social products. You can also donate to my Coffee page. And if you have Bitcoin, you can send it to my Joshu TV wallet. So those are all the different ways that you can support TTOR financially as far as crowdfunding platforms go. Another way you can support TTOR, Creation Social, and everything related to those things financially is you can go to Amazon and purchase one of my books. There's Another Inconvenient Truth, What Secular America Hates. And then there's Another Inconvenient Truth too, Defending Young Earth Creationism. Both books are available as a Kindle download and a paperback on Amazon. You can also download them as PDF files off of the TTOR Teespring store, and they're also available on the Creation Social Marketplace. Thank you for watching, and have an excellent day.